Are you good there, Rob?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, yeah, take it away.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this Parlor Car Chat. I'm Rob Himoto, President of San Luis Valley Railroad. With me is Nathan Paul, Director of the Railroad. Today is the 109th birthday of the Railroad. Current ownership is coming up in 14 years, so we're just a small slice of that 109-year history of the Railroad. We want to kind of talk about basically the last, say, 6 months to a year, because there's been a lot of changes on our railroad, and of course a lot of changes worldwide, globally. And we like to say we're making history every day. So
today's talk, we're going to talk about what has transpired in the last 6 months and highlight some of the big changes that have resulted in kind of the next chapter of history being written. The slide change there, that was an outbound train, and you can see our trains are getting bigger overall. I mean, I think that it reflects. It used to be when I first started here at the railroad, a big train, would be a train in the double digits, and now anything under 50 is not big. So just kind of a little eye candy there, looking across the farm field of the 1322 working. And I guess it's a good way to talk about the change in management that started about a year ago.
So the last several years, our business is kind of stagnant. We thought we'd change the direction of the company about a year ago, and we kind of went back to the nuts and bolts of fine-tuning our customer service, run a more scheduled railroad, provide more consistency and reliability for the customers. We brought in a trainer to train all of our personnel to become more efficient. Switching is more consistent and more efficient. Rail cars along our line are a lot more organized, so we can switch faster and get our customers' service faster. And as a result, the second half of the 2019 was super busy. It became our busiest year since we started 14 years ago. And from what I can see historically, 2019 ended up being the busiest year since the latter days of the Sugarbeet plant.
So a couple of things that Rob talked about there. We run a more scheduled railroad. Like, what does that mean? In this day and age, you hear a lot of buzzwords, precision scheduled railroading, stuff like that. In actuality, running a railroad, especially a short line like we do, the scheduled aspect correlates directly to efficiency for both us and our customers. An example being, you can have a general pickup time where you pick up a loaded car almost daily that goes to Quad, and then you spot the empty, and then it gets loaded overnight. They can schedule their business operations around when we spot them, and by spotting those cars consistently every afternoon, they know that the night shift can load them, and then we pull them the next day. And it also allows those cars to make it timely to Guadalupe, where we interchange with Union Pacific. And when we take them during a certain window when the Guad crew isn't switching in the yard, which makes it more efficient for both our railroad and Union Pacific, because we're not trying to work on top of each other. And that's just a kind of a broad strokes way of talking about how something as simple as sticking to a schedule is more than just a buzzword. It correlates into things like employee hours of work and being able to do more within a workday.
Yeah, we're really driving that efficiency. Same work crew, and we're getting a whole lot more done. So we're actually driving our costs down. And driving our costs down, and we'll get to this later, is it's saving on expenses, we've been able to put more money back into the track to improve infrastructure.
Yeah, and I think finally, another thought would be, busiest year since the later days of the sugar beet plant in terms of tonnage. How are we doing tonnage-wise compared to that, moving current 286 cars?
So tonnage-wise, we're way above what they did towards the end of the sugar beet plant days. The cars are roughly double the size, in some cases triple the size of 25, 30 years ago. So we're just hauling a lot more tonnage on our tracks. So the other thing is, in our change of philosophy, is back 14 years ago, we ran some dinner trains and we ran excursions for freight customers, and we plan to bring that back big time. And Nathan will elaborate more, but bringing freight customers on the line and showing them the line, they really get a good sense of what happens on our railroad, and they usually go back to their office and try to get more orders. As far as dinner train operations, we really need to work on the public perception of the railroad. The last few years, it's just freight, and really people don't really understand. We really need to get public officials back on the railroad and see what we do.
Yeah, it's as much marketing as it is PR, as it is government relations. It's all of the above. And to that end, we acquired the SMG 1449. And from the history standpoint, the 1449 it's a 1950 built Bud 10-6 sleeping car, originally delivered to the Union Pacific for what they called their City of Everywhere fleet, and it worked on the City of Los Angeles, the City of San Francisco. The car's name was, original reporting marks were UP 1449. The name was Pacific Waves. So another way to put it is it's one of the Union Pacific's Pacific Series sleepers. Went to Amtrak and was part of the Head End Power refurbishing program in 1989. And it rounded out its Amtrak career in 2001 working out of Florida on the auto train before it was sold from Amtrak to a couple different owners, and then was acquired from an owner in Northern California. It's roadworthy. It was roadworthy when we bought it. Moved via freight service down the Central Valley over to Tehachapi and then Cajon to West Colton and then up to Gemco Yard and finally to us. So with that being said, it's good to know a car's history because I think it's neat, and it is kind of interesting to find pieces of armor yellow paint here and there and little stencils. But our vision for this car is for the future, and the roomettes were gone when it was purchased. So that end of the car is empty. Well, not anymore. Now it has a ceiling and can lights and subwalls, and basically we're to the point of finalizing, redoing the floor and installing things like a drink station and service bar and other interior appointments. And then it'll be used on the line for freight customers, as well as, like Rob said, limited excursion or dinner train operations, primarily through the friends of the SMV, and already looking for potentially a stable mate, but one thing at a time. We'll finish getting the 1449 going, and they'll be working here real soon.
Yeah. I'm trying to stay in chronological order. Back in September, we rebuilt the venerable Junction crossing. It's been disintegrating for many years. About 5 years ago, we did a Band-Aid job. In September, we went in, Put 136-pound continuous welded rail, and it's almost completed. It needs some fine tuning, but at least the track is in. The track is solid. The track before was disintegrating.
So the photo at left is when we took out the old track. And that was the good half of the old section of track. The other half, like the other lane, if you will, came apart summarily when we pulled it out. This section here stayed together a little bit better, but pretty much disintegrated by the time we got it to the shoulder of the road behind the big Volvo excavator. And it was back to back with 12s for 4 days.
4 days, yeah.
To get it done, but we banged it out.
So in October, Union Pacific Railroad ran a business train special for the California Short Line Association. And usually it used to run, it normally runs from Sacramento to Reno. And this year they said, we're running it to San Luis Obispo, from Burbank to San Luis Obispo. Which is kind of a big deal to us because it's for the first time other short line operators can see into our backyard. There was quite a bit of UP managers from Omaha and pretty much all the 25 short line operators in California, getting a close-up view of the coastline and our Guadalupe interchange point for the San Maria Valley. And this picture here is the train going past our interchange tracks there.
So it's one of the rare times that this CSLRA, the California Short Line Railroad Association fall train trip, actually passed by a CSLRA member railroad. Many times they're kind of in the neighborhood, but other than the PHL, this is the only time I can think of that I recall where a railroad was front and center. And what was interesting was riding the train with UP brass, some from Omaha, some from Southern California. They're paying close attention to the track and to the general state of repair as we go down the right of way. There were several managers from the track department on board making notes. But it was really the SMV's show as far as speaking to the current state of affairs with coast operations because of the volume of traffic that we represent for them, especially at this, what we'll call the northern end of the southern half of the coast. And it really became clear just how much volume we've brought to this section of the coastline, especially in the last few years as things continue to increase.
And so we were told in 5 years we have become UP's largest customer on the southern end of the coastline. Actually, they're actually saying the entire end of the coastline now that the oil cans are gone.
That's a good feeling.
Yeah. And here's another shot of the business train. It parked overnight in San Luis before returning to Burbank. And there's the museum in the back there. And then on January 22nd of this year, my mom, Betty Himoto, passed away. At the time, at 95 years old, she was the oldest active railroad director in the nation. When we were trying to purchase this railroad 15 years ago, she pretty much forego her retirement to help purchase and rebuild the railroad. And she's active all the way to the end. And it's been a big void to fill. I know she was getting up there. She probably should have retired from directorship, but she troopered on all the way to the end. So it's just one of those changing of the guard here. We brought in Nancy Nungesser, my sister, to take her place. So this railroad has the longest continuous female directorship of any railroad in the nation, starting, I think it was like it was like around 1951 when Marion Hancock became a director of the railroad. So we've had a continuous female director since 1952. And if we keep going, I don't think anybody's going to touch us, because there's not a railroad that's even close to that record. So in March of all you know, COVID-19 hit, and Nathan and I and Ray, one of the directors, we were trying to be on top of it the first week in March, trying to develop emergency plans. And it's funny, we developed an emergency plan, and we really had to enact it within a week, because by mid-March, everything was shut down. But railroads are deemed essential businesses, and so we had to keep going, and we never stopped operating. We had to make some changes. The rail yard and facilities are locked down, have been locked down, closed to all visitors. We implemented procedures to clean and sanitize the workplace, trying to keep our employees healthy. Pretty much instruct our employees, hey, you have to really quarantine down, stay away from everybody, because we need you guys here healthy and moving freight. And we really weren't sure what was going to happen with the freight traffic. You know, at least there's a lot of business out there that had to close or curtailed, or they just lost a lot of business just because other businesses were closing, people were shut in. And what we found was our traffic skyrocketed. Frozen vegetables, packing away lots of refrigerator cars. Usually in the wintertime, refrigerator cars slow down. We never missed a beat. In fact, before COVID hit, we were doing record amounts of refrigerator cars, and it never stopped. I was told, hey, we need to restock supermarket shelves, a lot of them going Midwest and back east. And that continues to today. Now, as a result, farmers, they're asking the farmers, hey, we need more vegetables to freeze and get to supermarkets. So it's been a boom time for the farmers, and we've had record amount of inbound fertilizer and tractors as local farmers rush to replant crops. Pix Wheat and Lineage, our packing houses, they're more retail. They can go and switch to supermarkets. You hear about food being dumped and things like that, and that's the supply chains that supply restaurants and big institutional places like colleges and things like that. And our companies around here adapt really well, packing it straight to the retail market. And so both our customers and us have been busy this whole entire time. The other thing is, building materials never slow down. Housing on the Central Coast is considered an essential business, so housing starts never slow down, construction never slow down. In fact, all our customers are considered essential businesses, and they've all have increased business during this pandemic. So if we continue at this rate, this will be our biggest year ever for tonnage in carloads.
It's kind of been amazing. It's represented some challenges too, because keeping the train working, keeping the guys working and keeping the trains running when everything outside of what we do is a little more complicated. It's hard to pack your lunch to come to work if there's no bread on the shelves at the grocery store, stuff like that. And, when you say we implemented a plan, which we did, to sanitize the workplace, the railroad does not lend itself to sanitization. it's a dirty environment. But you know, through diligence and basically the same work ethic that our crews put into their day-to-day work, you know, they've embraced the idea of the business plan and how to stay healthy, and we're making it happen.
And then the other thing is, we always kind of were semi-prepared for emergencies. We saw what happened at Thomas Fire and mudslides. The railroad was really the first to get their infrastructure back in order and moving passengers and freight. And so we understand this railroad is critical to keep the economy going when there's a major disaster. So we had actually a stockpile of supplies of even like cleaning materials. We actually stockpiled cleaning materials, so when we couldn't get it, at least we could keep cleaning. Just things like that. We were a little bit better prepared than we thought we were. I mean, we were kind of panicking trying to get supplies, but we kind of made it through it here.
So the photo there, that's 6 inbound, the 6 cars that were just spotted in the Osborne yard for unloading, and that's drywall. So that customer, 6 cars at a whack, that's a good increase in business.
Yeah, and our transload yard in Osborne has been busy the whole entire time with drywall and lots of fertilizer. But with all this traffic, and we actually had kind of a wet winter this year. Busiest winter in over 30 years in a wet winter. It played havoc on our tracks. We really struggled. That was the one thing is our track was really taking the brunt of this tonnage with wet weather, and so we really had to step up our maintenance away program. Fortunately, well, unfortunately for them, our neighbors to the south, the Fillmore and Western Railway, of course, in March, they had to shut down. There were no tourists and the movie industry on hiatus. So they were able to send their track crews up to help us out. And it's been a great help because the last 2 months, we did a lot of projects. We put in, we're not sure yet, we're still counting, over 1,000 ties in just a couple of months. Lots of rail, lots of rock, lots of resurfacing. That's the west leg of the Y that you see. That Y in the airbase branch, north-south branch, I've seen a lot of traffic because of our lumber and our cable plant have been going full tilt. Our cable plant is working 24 hours a day, 3 shifts a day. So they're taking in a lot of rail cars also. And that's our only runaround on the airbase branch. And we've had to retie it, ballast and tamped it.
So when you're looking at that, just kind of to explain, when we say we replace ties, so obviously the ties wear out, they're rot with time, you know, and they wear from the bottom and the top. The bottom from moisture, the top from the cutting action that occurs from the weight of the train passing over the rail, pushing down, cutting into the surface. So as they need replaced, the procedure is to identify which ties need replaced and remove the spikes and the tie plates, and that creates a little bit of gap between the bottom of the rail and the top of the tie. Then we use the backhoe perpendicular to push down and slide that tie generally towards the backhoe. Now, in the picture here with all the ballast, it's easier. Other places, it's where the track is sunk, you have to do a little bit of excavation initially, and that's why we're putting so much rock ballast back into it to remedy that for the future. So once the old tie is out, you dig out any ballast and stuff that has sloughed into the area, to position the new tie and slide it back in with the backhoe, and generally work it back and forth using the teeth on the backhoe as a grabber to set the rough elevation of the tie to minimize the work later for jacking when you have to spike it. So the crew working that way with the backhoe and 2 or 3 guys can do dozens and dozens of ties a day. You add a second backhoe, and the record was what, 70 last month?
Yeah.
In a day?
72, yeah.
Yeah, 72 ties in a day, which is pretty respectable considering there's not an automated string of track-mounted equipment like a Class 1 would have. Just, you know, people with muscles and backhoes.
That's the Goodwin Drill. They did, 4 of them did 37 ties that day with just 1 backhoe. That's over near Delta. And then had Phil and Weston bring in their ballast regulator with the rear broom. Over in the fields, we get a lot of dirt on the tracks, and they trap moisture, they rot ties, they rust out rails. So with this thing, they're able to broom out the dirt and leave the rock. Many of our ties that we're replacing right now, it was installed between the early and mid 1960s when SMBR last performed a major tie work just before Captain Hancock passed away. Pretty much did ties over the entire line, but they're all kind of sort of coming apart at the same time. I mean, we've been doing ties, quite a bit of ties the last 3 or 4 years, but there's just other spots that we haven't done and it's starting to go. And then in May, of course, we had the civil unrest, which really increased vandalism and theft around all the businesses, and homelessness. So the second week of May, Nathan arranged to have a coordinated cleanup with the city of Santa Maria. We did a major cleanup of most of the right-of-way in town.
Yeah, the homeless had there are many factors at play regionally and at the state level that have resulted in really a exploding homeless population that are uninhibited when it comes to occupying private property. And so working with the police department and the city, we identified these key areas where it had gotten bad, and then using a third-party contractor and basically declaring a blitz, we went in and cleared the right-of-way, and as a result, it's a lot safer for the train crews, and even the citizens of the city are safer because of the reduction in amount of debris there. With the unrest, there was a fire that was started in the right-of-way. Somebody lit one of the ties on fire actually in the track, but that fire didn't spread because the right-of-way was clear edge to edge. So it was nice to have had that done. And we just finished this past week another major cleanup at Bell Storage, which is one of the busiest places on the railroad because of the adjacency to Pick Suite, the packing house. And Bell Storage, the area around that now looks like the surface of the moon, which is really nice. It's going to be a lot more efficient to work there and a lot safer as well.
Yeah, there's certain parts of the railroad that at the end here, we've made a requirement that you had to work in pairs because there's a lot of dangerous elements. So cleaning up the right-of-way really alleviated that. Also in the Osborne Yard here, we've had some minor problems, but we now patrol the Osborne Yard 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I think it's helped because surrounding businesses have been complaining to me that they get hit like all the time, theft, vandalism, graffiti, and we've been able to ward that off. So knock on wood, that continues.
It's just the new normal, I think. We just have to be more proactive in protecting our greatest asset, which is the railroad. It's literally the railroad itself.
Right. We never really like to spend resources on cleaning up the railroad, but on the other hand, it makes our railroad doesn't look like it's abandoned. It looks like it's a vibrant and we're moving traffic when the right of way is clean. It gives our customers more confidence that the railroad is in good shape and operating, and it changes the public perception. You get a lot of people saying, "I didn't know the railroad's still running. It looks like it's weedy, like no trains run through there." So cleaning it up, cleaning all the trash out, it really changed the perception of the railroad.
Yeah.
So our other big news is our Jeep 9 flagship locomotive 1801. It's been down how many years now? 4 or 5 years?
Every bit of 5.
I think it's 5. Yeah, you're right. So the locomotive have recently been completely rewired from head to toe. It's had some major repairs performed. Power assembly was replaced, among many other things. So keeping our fingers crossed, we may have the 1801 back in action this week as early as Monday. We're very close. So that's a really exciting thing. With our increased traffic, the 1801 is our best puller. It can easily pull 60 to 80 cars at a whack, so we don't have to double and triple over.
I can't wait. The 1801 is a puller, and like when you're working the train, it's not just what it can pull once you break inertia and get rolling. That engine can dig in and start a cut of cars, move in one direction or the other, with tremendous torque, getting it rolling, and that directly correlates to efficiency, because when you're on the ground switching and you have to move cars back and forth, the quicker you can dig in and get them moving, the quicker you can complete that movement. So Rafael Sanchez, our lead engineer, he and I have been talking. I can't wait to come work on the train when the 1801's up and running. That'll be like stand on the front of it and like the Titanic movie, with my face in the wind, being happy.
And then if we have a huge tonnage train, we could then view both the 1322 and 1801 together, and we could pull trains that have never been pulled on the SMV. Never really had this much traction power all at once there with the 2 locomotives.
We're going to need it. The way things are going.
So we got a lot of future plans, long-term plans and short-term plans. One of the short-term plans is we're partnering up with Fillmore and Western Railway, and we're going to have a full car department here. We're going to start with mobile car repairs, and by next year we'll build a facility here in Osborne Yard to do full work on rail cars. 2 things: it'll keep our customers' cars on the road and not in the shop. If we repair stuff here, it'll get on the road and it'll make it to destination without hitting any car shops and delaying shipments. And the other thing is it'll increase business because the large railroads have cut their car departments. There's less car departments, and so customers, they're looking for places to send cars to get repaired. So it'd be another thing that'll really drive more traffic to the SMV.
Yeah, it's so in terms of car repair, like what does that mean? And that is anytime a car is operating on the national rail network in transit, it's subject to inspection at terminal points. And if it's found to have defects, it can be set out and repaired by the railroad where it's at. So when a load, for example, leaves here, like Rob said, and if there's a defect in the car and it's bad ordered, it gets delayed in transit. So our customers are going to be better off when those cars can be repaired here prior to leaving. And as far as making history, with a car repair shop set up on site and the ability to take in other cars for work or work on the cars that are here, it'll represent a revenue stream for the company and a business that is new, and forging a new direction.
And then long-term plans is we're working on a document to develop adjacent properties next to the rail to be rail served. The city of Santa Maria and Santa Barbara County, they have plans that basically ignore the railroad. They put inappropriate zoning next to the railroad, and if we're going to come up with a master plan. It's with our vision of what should be next to the railroad. A railroad can really attract major industries and businesses because we need jobs. We need housing, but we need jobs. And then the other thing is we've always been kind of allergic to this passenger rail, but really in our future we're going to have to participate and help move people. City of Santa Maria is growing like crazy. The Central Coast is growing. 101 can only handle so much traffic. And so in our master plan, years down the line, our master plan is we'll have to provide passenger commuter service, and it'll be a regional function, say from Santa Maria to Paso Robles or Santa Maria to Guadalupe to help alleviate traffic. Because with more housing, it's going to create more people, which is more traffic congestion. So we're doing this long-term plan to kind of explore everything, and at some point we'll have a draft, and any of you would like to participate in this, we're welcome for suggestions or anything else, any input, because eventually we're going to package this stuff and send it to the city and county and say this is our vision. The city, by the way, in their 1992 plans for traffic flow include a light rail system within Santa Maria. So we're going to brush that off and say, hey, you guys have a plan that we'll be willing to eventually enact here in the future.
I think it's funny the way you said we've been allergic, but ultimately starting that dialogue is going to be important because it's the way of the future.
It is the way of the future. I mean, you look at other countries in Europe, in Japan. Japan has many short line railroads, and many of them they haul passengers to alleviate traffic congestion. And we're trying to figure out a way to do it properly. It's pretty rare to do this properly without government help. There's a couple ones, that Florida East Coast Railway. They're in the passengers, and they have somehow made it profitable. And then other long-term plans is electrifying the line, so it would be carbon neutral. So we're trying to preserve our right-of-way and not get it to shrink down like the city wants us to do, because we need apparatus to electrify our railway, next 20 years, say. But the future is coming, maybe coming faster. We see electric cars coming, so electrifying the railway, we're trying to make long-term plans for that somehow. Let's see. And well, thank you for joining us. We work closely with the Friends of San Luis Valley Railroad. Usually we have an annual barbecue around August, and we're going to do something different. We're going to do some sort of virtual tour, virtual live tour, and we're working on that. Hopefully September or something like that. And so you've got to be a member to participate. And we put the website up here. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we're happy to share what's been happening here. There's been a lot of changes in this world, a lot of changes here. Fortunately, it's been a lot of good changes. We're just so fortunate that we're just an essential business that many people depend on us. We're able to grow in these very trying times.
Rob, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I was just going to say, I've opened the mics up again, so if anybody wants to ask you guys a question, we've got a couple minutes. We could do that if you want.
Okay.
And thank you, Diane, while I'm thinking of it, for reminding me to start the recording. We got it done.
So Rob, tell us more about the passenger car that you're fixing up. How close are you to having that done?
Well, so that's my baby. I don't mean to be, I don't know exactly, because some things, for example, drilling holes in stainless steel. You think, well, there are drill bits for stainless steel, you need to drill a hole. To drill the holes that I needed to run new electrical wire through the inside structural membranes, it took 3 weeks of trial and error with different cutting oil and different drill types from manufacturers. So when I say I don't know, it's because like an unforeseen delay like that, I couldn't believe it. I wanted to bash my head against the wall. It's so frustrating. But it's 1950 stainless. Stuff is extraordinarily strong. My goal is to have the interior in it by completed, like by Christmas time this year, by the end of the year. It's really a matter of kind of like lining up dominoes, and it takes a long time and you don't see a lot of progress, and then all of a sudden the dominoes start to fall. So like Rob popped in the other day, and I was frustrated because I didn't feel like I'd made a lot of progress hooking up the ceiling with all the conduit in for the can lights and whatnot. No, I think you've actually made a lot of progress, which felt good to hear. So I'm optimistic for the end of the year to be able to get it going, and it also kind of depends on what we've got going here, because sometimes I'll reroute effort and do other stuff, like if we have a track project. But definitely taking longer than I thought it was going to, and yet so it goes. Such is life. But I'm pushing hard to get it done.
So the original kind of goal was this summer.
Yeah.
With the COVID, I think Nathan got a reprieve there, so it gave him more time.
Well, it's a beautiful car. I look forward to seeing it when it's done.
Oh yes, you'll have to join us.
Yeah.
I will.
Any other questions out there? Well, Rob, Nathan, thank you very much for doing the Santa Maria Valley Railroad Parlor Car Chat for us. And you can look forward, let people know if they missed it and express an interest. It should be on the website, a link to the recording, probably later today or certainly sometime tomorrow. So thank you all, and we will see you next week when we actually continue the Santa Maria Valley Railroad topic to some degree by taking a look at what the steam locomotive number 205 looked like about 5 years ago when we visited it in Oregon. That will be our topic next Saturday, 10 o'clock Pacific. We'll see you all then.
Wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.